right, welcome to TMC Live, episode 9, technically. This is Eve, kind of. I am joined once again by the lovely Nystrik and the even lovelier Alikchi. And tonight we have a pretty good show for you. It's actually probably going to be our best show because I think the bar is set so extraordinarily low that we can't help but beat it. So we're going to talk a little bit about Eve, what's going on in nullsec, as well as the This Is Eve trailer. We're also going to talk a little bit about Elite Dangerous, and if you're lucky, we might even let Nystrik talk about eggs that turn into castles once more.
For varying definitions of the word lucky.
Yeah. First up, though, let's talk about this trailer. I assume everybody in the world has seen this trailer at this point.
Everyone in the world has seen it twice, yes.
2 or 3 times.
I've watched it 4 times, actually. I really liked it.
Well,
I cried every time.
It's for the first time, it's a trailer that actually captures what Eve... their old slogan of Eve is real should have been with this trailer.
Yep.
This is the way in which Eve is real. It's not some goofy live actor doing some weird monologue-y bullshit.
Role play crap.
It's real people doing monologue-y things.
Yep.
Without meaning to.
So this is pretty great. It actually got shared around. I don't know if you guys saw this, but almost everybody was sharing this. Like a couple of the guys from Rock Paper Shotgun shared it, saying, "Wow, this really makes me want to get back into Eve." Sean Murray, who's making No Man's Sky, was sent out a tweet that said something along the lines of, "If this doesn't make you want to play Eve, I don't know what's wrong with you." Like, it's just a tremendous trailer.
Splash. Yeah.
And I think we're already starting to see the effects of that. In the trial rates and new player creation. You guys know a little bit about that, right?
Yep.
Yes. It's bumped up from 150 new accounts an hour to something like 500 since the trailer's released.
Is that an hour?
Yes, per hour.
That's
apparently,
nuts. I didn't
character
realize
creation was
that.
lucky if it broke 150 per hour previously.
Wow.
But 500 per hour new trial accounts in the past 2 to 3 days. Pretty insane growth. And of course, CCP has been forced to respond and try and retain all of these players, which is going to be a miracle if they do, but they're trying.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know that
interesting.
they started staffing up the player help channel, because there's just a bunch of lost people in there because the tutorial is still garbage, kind of.
They released a dev blog to try and help some of these rookies out. It's helpful, I guess. It's more helpful than the tutorial, anyway. That's for sure.
And I know new player focused organizations, I guess you'd call them, like Brave Newbies and Eve University and stuff. They're all blown up as well.
Yeah. There's been some interesting news regarding Brave and their accepting people's standards and how it's affecting the alliances that Brave is allied with.
Do they have standards?
Hero? Really?
That's the thing, is they don't.
No, legitimately, I thought
I'm legitimately telling you
Yeah.
is that I think at the moment that Brave is accepting everybody who's applying, and other entities are like, so this makes us a little uncomfortable. If there's a rifter sitting in your system for no reason, just shoot it.
That's not a great welcoming mat to roll out.
That's not a player retention strategy, no.
No, but I think, and this is it's not unheard of, obviously, for alliances to accept people and be like, oh shit, whoops, it was really an AWOXer, are bad. And that happens from time to time, and it's something people that are AWOXing are going to slip through the cracks for alliances that accept newer players, and those older players that are really just AWOXers or getting in just to screw with the alliances and whatever, they're going to slip through the cracks because everyone is just getting accepted into the alliances in general who accept newer players. And it's not just Brave that does that. There are other alliances that do that as well, and other corporations. So I mean, I imagine that will become more of an issue for those other corps that accept new players.
I mean, my first reaction upon you saying that they have no standard, they're just accepting applications as quickly as they can process them, is to go ahead and apply. with a character, because I'm sure that'll be useful at some point for some fun.
And it's not about being mean to Brave or Test or anything. That's just Brave doesn't have.
Well, you don't like
Brave and
very much, right?
I mean, whatever. That's not even the point. Is that Brave and Test both are kind of, they build themselves up on the idea that if you're a new player, come to us. We'll teach you how to play the game. We don't mind doing those sorts of things for new players, and I think that that's great. But as a result of that, older players who are just in it to screw with corps or alliances slip through the cracks. It happens.
I think that's always going to be the case, though. There's no distinction between an old vet creating a new account and a new person creating a trial account. I think the main thing, CCP's actually done well in this case in the changes. I believe they were in Phoebe to Phoebe. Yeah.
It's Phoebe. Like, what's
It's Phoebe.
Phoebe. The changes in Phoebe to being able to remove people who are flying in space from your corporation has definitely narrowed AWOXing down.
They can't do that.
No, they can do that. That has been a change.
Interesting.
What do you mean they can't do that?
You guys should.
The mechanic now is that there's a queue that you can create for kicks, and at downtime,
yes, and when they log in, automatically,
the queue will be processed so that you don't have to alarm clock for downtime to kick out some, shitty AWOXer. In fact, when I interviewed Fozzie in Vegas, he said that it's in all likelihood they'll never be able to have the ability to kick someone out if they're in space.
Okay, so AWOXing as a thing won't ever be dead. That's good.
No,
but
I don't think it ever will be, and I don't ever want it to be.
At least,
yeah.
To be honest, there's a part of me that really misses the random pizza alts that would make their way into Test Alliance, and then having it be like, oh no, we let a pizza alt in. What do we do? We're being AWOXed. I'll always miss those days.
Yeah.
Of Test Alliance.
I mean, I'd be really sad if that option wasn't available to me anymore.
Yeah.
Not to say that I take advantage of that very often, because I don't. I just don't have the time to fuck around like that. But if I did, I'd really like to do that some more.
Especially for solo players who like to go it alone, AWOXing is a totally viable way to do something fun in the game. And I feel like a lot of solo players would feel like they wouldn't have a whole lot to do if that weren't an option.
Yeah, no, it's a great way to exploit the mechanics, and exploiting mechanics is pretty much what EVE is all about.
Yep.
Sometimes, when you're allowed to.
Yeah, sometimes you're getting destroyed by the
mechanics. It's a bad exploit now. Kind of more back to the point, though. I mean, do you think that they'll actually be able to hold on to any of these people, Nystrik, or do you think that this is just one of those one-time spikes, similar to like what you see with BTAC-R or Asakai, like when it hits the news or it hits the media big time, you always see this spike in players, and it always goes right back down because EVE.
I think that there will be, with like all those types of big stories that hit, because I've seen this literally, people who I didn't even know knew EVE existed were posting this all over my Facebook and all over my Twitter and whatever. So I was like, well, that's cool. People I didn't know knew EVE are suddenly excited about it or want to play it or at least talking about it. So I mean, I think there will be some people that they retain, but I think the percentage that they retain will be a lot smaller than those that leave. And the reason that I think that is because there's a few stopping blocks to getting to the point where you're in a situation that the videos are showing you.
Yes.
And those sorts of events are not a daily thing usually. I mean, they are in some way, and they are in others. So the first stopping block is obviously the tutorial. People are going to get in. They're going to go through the opening parts and try to go through the tutorial. Maybe they won't. Hopefully, they have someone hand-holding them through the first couple days of playing EVE, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have gotten as far as I did personally. So hopefully people, if they make it through the tutorial, maybe they'll make it into an alliance, maybe. Most alliances aren't as newbie friendly. So the second stopping block is finding an alliance that's going to accept you.
You know who is newbie friendly, apparently?
Test Alliance and Brave. Join today.
And Black Legion.
Really?
You guys didn't see that?
I did not see this.
What?
Yeah, there's a there's a streamer named Macy Liu, I believe.
Okay.
I saw a bit of this.
I vaguely heard of this.
Who has in the past primarily played like Sims games or whatever. And after the trailer made the rounds, she's one of these new players. Like decided to give Eve a try, and was streaming it. And
I remember this now.
As a nice confirmation of just how very sad a lot of Eve players can be.
It got broadcasted everywhere.
Yeah, and was instantly snapped up by Black Legion because obviously she's a very skilled EVE Online player, having not even completed the fucking tutorial.
With tits! That's what's important! Let's get it.
I was gonna dance around that particular thing, but...
I'm gonna dive right in. I'm gonna dive right in. I'm a girl. I'm allowed to make fun of other girls who play video games. You guys aren't.
Apparently that's the way that works, but apparently, Black Legion snatched her up real quick and added her to their elite PvP ranks. I'm curious to see how that pans out. It may have already panned out. I have no idea because I had to work today. So.
I expect to see her camping a bubble and Declan in a few days. Should be pretty smooth sailing for her.
But I guess kind of a little bit back to will CCP retain these players?
Let's say we're not going back. It's the same question. Will CCP retain Macy Liu? That's the fucking question.
Maybe.
And all the other wonderful Macy Lius out there.
It depends on how many guys she can scam for real life things.
Wow, we're just gonna fucking knock up a bunch of stereotypes and just knock them out of the fucking park. All right.
And I told you.
So one of the interesting things about this trailer, we won't spend too much more time on this, but one of the other interesting things that was that they did take time in this trailer to demonstrate some of the other parts of EVE. They didn't just focus on fleet fights, which we all know are the most exciting things when it comes.
They showed someone in that SOE cruiser flying around solo. Yeah.
They showed that. They showed Johnny Pugh, I think it was, fitting a ship or doing some invention or something.
That was Jeff Rader fitting an incursus.
Oh, Jeff Rader was fitting, and Johnny Pugh was inventing, I think.
I believe so. Yeah.
So they made an effort to kind of show these other aspects of EVE, and it actually worked really well in the trailer. Which I guess, I don't know if the point of that is only that anything can be really interesting and engaging if you have orchestral music playing behind you. Like Invention, it sounds like fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's that's an intense screen with that music going. Again? Yeah, that's the Invention screen. Chun cha 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 chun cha cha cha.
I like that you slowed it down so I could catch it. That was amazing.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I mean, the trailer is all the high points, basically, of EVE.
It is, and none of the low points.
It's the 10% that is amazing.
I mean,
the 90% that is waiting on Titans, that is jumping through gates, that is mining. Yeah. Although the guy that they got who was mining in the trailer seemed really enthused about mining, so
he was excited. He was making 130
This is everything to me.
Yes. He was making almost 130 mil. He was excited.
Who is the was it Bombers Bar?
Yeah.
FC?
Yeah.
That
Red
fucking
Squadron,
guy.
Gold Squadron, go, 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 go. Yeah.
My favorite part
of this though. I really liked watching that. I don't know if I could really handle that fleet.
My favorite part of the trailer was, guys, how do I warp to something? Favorite part of the whole trailer is that they got that in there. I was like, yes.
Yeah, they did such a tremendous job. It's easily the best trailer they've ever made. It's one of the best game trailers I think that's ever been made, just kind of period across the board. So where do they go from here? Every trailer is going to suck after this. They just can't make any more trailers.
They got to cruise on this idea, maybe.
I don't think they can do this again.
What I think... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay,
well, I think...
Fucking chemistry, you have it.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going ahead. Thank you.
Okay.
I think that what this has in common with the second best trailer, which in my opinion was Crucible, is that it's all about spaceships. You got pictures of spaceships blowing each other up. That's pretty much all Crucible was the camera flying around and, of real game footage on the test server of players blowing each other up. This is basically an expanded version of that with voice comms to let you know what players are experiencing and what they're doing. I think that if they stick with that template of avoiding hey, here's some lore, I don't care about it. Hey, here's the camera sweeping over a planet, I don't care about the planet. And stick with spaceships blowing each other up that are piloted by real people and inflicting real damage. That's the key to a good Eve trailer.
I agree.
And you can repeat that.
I agree.
You'd have to.
Yeah, I think one of the things they probably could do is kind of weave in the actual Eve narrative that players create, which is something that a lot of people don't understand about Eve. In nullsec, players create the narrative of how alliances come into being, how they live, how they fall, how they die, etc. And that's a lot of, to me personally, is what I love Eve politics. I think it's very interesting to sit and read about. I think the way that the Sov map changes daily, I will click on it daily and watch it change. And those videos, I don't know who's put out those videos on YouTube of the transition over like the 6-month period or a year period of those Eve changing. The face of Eve changes every year. And I think that they could definitely weave some sort of actual narrative into these videos and then remind people that these are narratives that we as players create. And that's exciting, I think.
I think what they should do after this is they should make a mini series of these types of trailers showing the real Eve experience based loosely on Generation Kill. And if you haven't seen that show, you won't get that reference. But it's like it just so that you can capture the 90% boredom and frustration and utter just what the fuck am I even doing here?
Maybe
you know what?
It's the Pacific.
Yeah, that would actually be really interesting to watch, like from maybe different FCs or different leaders' perspectives, to do like a 10-minute them talking about what it's like to be an FC in Test or Brave or Goons or PL.
Maybe that's so. You've had a couple good ideas here. What you need to do at the end of the show is write them down real quick and email them to CCP.
Okay.
Dear Ned Coker.
And just tell them the bank account into which they can deposit funds when they take your ideas. I think maybe that is the next place they go is mixing the game footage with like actual sit downs with leaders, kind of like similar to the Eve documentary that came out a little while ago that was shot mostly at FanFest. I forget.
Yeah.
Something along those lines where you can put like, this is this guy commanding this bomber wing, and look at how amazing that is, and then look, it's a dude like you, or it's a chick like you,
and mom's basement.
Yeah, and it's just it's just a normal person that does this whole other thing that's pretty tremendous. Along those lines, also, GameSpot had a 10 years of WoW series of documentaries, like 10 quick clips, basically, of different types of people that have played WoW over the years. That was actually really cool too, because it gave that connection. Like, these are real people, and then they go do this other kind of weird thing every day.
I agree.
That was one of the strengths of the Eve documentary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you guys have any other thoughts about that trailer? Like the retention issues, anything like that? Before we move on,
there were no goons.
Yeah.
There were no goons. What a bunch of jerks.
There haven't been any goons since 2006. Did you not read the forums?
Oh, I must have missed that. Shit.
Yeah. I know one of the only remaining real goons. There's like 6 of them.
Oh, okay.
We're all fakers at this point.
Yeah.
But I thought the CCP has their work cut out for them, but I think the game is in a lot better state to retain these new players than it was 6 months ago, a year ago, God forbid 2 years ago. Crucible, I keep going back to Crucible. Crucible was the Crucible. I think at that point the game was very close to being in trouble. serious trouble. It was in a tailspin.
That's quite the analogy you've spun there. The
Thank you
Crucible
so
was
much.
The Crucible.
I'm all about the homonyms. But it's I think the game actually is in a decent enough state now where you could bring in someone who got burned by Eve 2 or 3 years ago, and they might be willing to give it another shot. And 2 or 3 years ago, they didn't necessarily have opportunities like Brave or RVB or, I mean, Eve Uni existed, but the problems with Eve University are well known.
Many.
Yes.
Storied.
Yes, it's
And
part of the
documented.
lore at this point on the Eve University wiki. But I think the game's actually in a decent enough place where we might retain a relatively significant percentage. Any game, you're going to have 50% of the people, hit the wall and not pursue it. Since this is Eve, another 25% will probably hit the wall of mining is boring and I don't want to do this anymore.
Well,
but
even just
25% retention is huge. Yeah.
Even just getting through the tutorial is still not the most engaging thing. They've done it a lot better these days. It's easily the best tutorial that's ever existed for this game.
Yep.
Oh, those qualifiers.
It doesn't mean it's a good tutorial. It just means it's the best one that they've had.
I think new players, and this is something that maybe needs to be sort of some sort of noted somewhere in some sort of Eve thing that new players have access to, is that joining an alliance, whether it's a mining alliance or a nullsec alliance or a lowsec alliance, any sort of alliance, is really the key to enjoying yourself in Eve, because these people have the tools to help you figure out what to do. If you come into the game and you just don't have any idea, you're like, okay, I got through the tutorial, and? Well, the and is go find an alliance, join an alliance, and have a fun time. The people will help you through what you don't understand. Sometimes they'll shit on you for being new.
Sometimes they'll just be dicks.
Sometimes they'll just be dicks, and that happens. And it's unfortunate that has to happen, but it does. But if you can get through it, it is part of Eve. And if you can get through it and roll with the punches and be a dick back, then you're good to go.
You have to be a certain kind of masochist. Yeah. And I think, at this point in Eve, there's been so much ISK accumulated by those big alliances. The only really valuable resource left is human bodies, people behind the controls.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's not... That's the lifeblood of any alliance at this point, is just the people that can actually show up. And it has been for actually some time. But, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty hopeful. I think, so last Friday, this last Friday night, me and Alikchi here... decided to actually play some EVE Online because of that trailer. Mm-hmm. And we actually had a good amount of people watching and a lot of questions coming in. Like, I'm new to EVE. Like, I clicked on a trial link. I don't know what I'm doing, please help, kind of stuff. And I think that was pretty universal across the board. Like, people are just gobbling up any kind of EVE Online reference they can get right now. It's probably already starting to tail off. Like, that's kind of a flash in the pan thing. Like, that's going to, by this weekend, like, we're going to be back to normal, I would imagine. But for the time being, it's really cool. It's nice to have this injection of new blood because, like you're talking about retention rates, typically if you don't find a group of people to play with in any MMO, the retention rate after 60 days is 40%. So 60% of all players have already given up on your game and they've gone away. That's games like WoW. That's games like Archeage, which is a tremendous game. That's games like, anything.
Can't wait to talk about that.
Boy, I can.
It's gonna be great, golly.
So that's a game. Those are relatively easy games to get into and kind of find your purpose and see what you want to do. Eve is not that game, so like you said, that percentage is probably significantly higher. And if you don't find anybody to play with, like that's, I started Eve twice and quit twice before the third time sunk because I found a bunch of people to play with. I think that's everybody's experience more or less. There's always going to be some minuscule, like 5%, or lower audience that
dive right in, and it's just perfect for them.
Super
this is amazing. Look at all the spaceships. And they just get real fucking into it. But
day one are already creating spreadsheets, and you're like,
they're like, oh, if I do this.
Don't get me wrong.
Like from day one, they understand the value of implants and shit. Like I didn't Fuck that shit.
No. Yeah.
Still,
I still don't know all the fucking ships' names, and it's been like
Right?
6 years.
But yeah, so I mean, I think it's a good time for Eve. Like the patches have been coming. The patches have been good. The expansions previous to that were pretty good. They got this trailer. Like things are kind of looking up. In
Yeah.
I think
general.
we can say that Seagull's dev strategy, the new cycle of, every month and a quarter or whatever, appears to be working really well. I think our main concerns about it were that without the big 6-month releases, you weren't getting much publicity. There wasn't a lot of lead-up time to get excitement, but Eve just had one of its biggest publicity moments ever.
Well, it's funny.
And
I
it's
actually
not
saw
even in the middle of a cycle, yeah.
I actually saw a tweet from Fozzie that addressed specifically that. Like they said that going to this new development cycle, they would not be able to make expansion trailers any longer because it's every 6 weeks. You can't do that.
Right.
And said instead we're going to start making Eve Online trailers. And he's like all fucking smug or whatever, and kind of deserves to be, but like, hey, how do you like this? Fuck yeah,
It makes sense.
Good.
I like it. Hey, their first attempt out of the gate at just making Eve trailers, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Keep going. Whoever you have that's coming up with these ideas,
Don't let them go to Riot.
don't let them go to Riot. Don't let them go to the Feeder Corp. Don't be the Feeder Corp. Don't let them go to Riot.
Stop feeding, please.
Yes, please. No Feederino.
So let's talk a little bit. Like we're going to try and hit the high points here. Let's talk about what's going on in Sov. So for those that are watching that may not have catched our other show that we have weekly, it's the meta show, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I'm not a fan of the title, but I don't call those kinds of shots.
Bro.
I didn't either. So.
Because the show is hosted by the Mittani and Nystrik. So maybe you can give us a quick rundown of what's going on in Sov. Not the Mittani version, which is like that big, but like the TMC Live version.
TMC Live version, if you really want to know all the details, go watch the YouTube video that'll be up on the website probably tomorrow. But the TLDR version is that people were a little worried about, or I was a little worried in particular about people would just kind of consolidate and then settle back into their little spots and stay there. And that's proven to not be the case. You've got PL and Brave and Hero fighting in Catch. You've got the Russians trying to make way, which they always do. Anytime a big patch happens or anytime there's a huge Sov shakeup, the Russians come out of the woodwork and they're at it again. So I'm gonna say there's a lot of
Russians.
They're at it again, guys. And in a little bit of surprising turn of events, the CFC has decided that it is now time to wipe Black Legion off the map. By wipe them off the map, I just mean get them out of Venal.
And by BL,
they weren't on the map.
No, I mean Black Legion.
All the test members that ended up in BL, which is to say,
Oh yeah, I
a
forgot
not
about
insignificant
A
portion.
solid
of
third.
test.
that. No,
Yeah.
actually, most of the people who I considered good friends actually joined Buddha's Corp and went to Black Legion.
Yeah.
And I considered doing it, but I didn't want to be.
A good thing, because you'd be getting run out of space right about now.
Well, running out of Venal, yeah. Which I thought in my head when we were talking about it, I put Venal where Vale was and flipped them. Because I'm an idiot. And I do that from time to time.
That happens. I don't even know where any of these places are, so.
There are northish places where people like to attack the CFC from. Vale is not NPC Sov. Venal is mostly.
So the thing I found interesting about the whole push to get them out of that area is there was lots of lead time, and we discussed this on another show. There was lots of lead time coming up to Phoebe. Everybody kind of understood what was going to happen.
Yep.
That travel would not be easy, and you saw a lot of alliances did hunker down. Like they gave up some regions. They made sure that they understood the geography around them because that now mattered. Yeah. And then they kind of settled in to see what happens. Did BL just not do that?
No, I don't actually think they have any Sov, so I'm not sure.
No, I mean it's not, but I mean like they still like they just kind of hunkered down in this area.
Yeah.
That is apparently, sources tell me, inordinately easy to choke off. There's like two spots that things can resupply from, and essentially just one, I think, if I understood correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
And you
like
can just
the new jump mechanics for jump freighters mean you can cut them off logistically.
Yeah,
If
and
you
so-
camp a couple of systems.
So did they
I
just drop
think-
the ball there? Do they not care?
I think the hope is, and this is obviously, I don't know, this is me speculating with a little bit of what Matani has said, and I'm going to take a little bit of what he said with a grain of salt because he is the leader of the CFC, so anything that he has to say about the person he's fighting might be a little bit over-exaggerated. Maybe, who knows? I don't know. It doesn't sound like Matani to spin anything, but, we'll see.
He's a pretty straight shooter.
Uh-huh.
But I
Guys
think
on
the
the up
hope
and up.
for Black Legion is that they will have N3 behind them. So that it won't matter that they don't have, like that they can be choked off. I think someone somewhere expects N3 to go hit up Fountain and pull the CFC's attention back there so Black Legion can do what it wants to do up north.
So they did.
Right.
So the thinking is that they did have a plan,
Yes,
For
but
this
that it was to
eventuality.
rely on someone else.
which
Yeah.
isn't the best plan in the world in general in any circumstance whatsoever. But
Well, the
As long as
CFC
you have a
has the
fucking plan.
numbers to fight a two-front war. Normally pre-Phoebe, the way the CFC would operate is it would bring the sledgehammer down on the operations at Fountain, and then it would turn around and go back to Venal, or vice versa. Now the CFC is fighting on two fronts because it's too difficult to move Dreads and Supercaps back and forth all the time. But that's okay. The CFC has the numbers to prosecute two wars at two different ends of the galaxy for the time being.
Don't underestimate the fact that BL does, for what it's worth, have a lot of very good FCs. So they might not have as many numbers as the CFC does, but having good FCs and competent pilots goes a very long way. And this is something that a lot of alliances have learned, is that, yes, you can have as much numbers as you want, but if you're fighting against competent FCs and competent pilots, it's not going to matter how many numbers you throw at them.
But how long is that going to stand up in light of BL's new recruitment policy, which is to grab every... No, I'll stop.
I didn't know that was their recruitment policy. I just thought they were like, yay, tits, I want. Please give. Okay.
It's a joke.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Sorry. You'll get used to the humor.
Sometimes I
Well,
miss it, I'm sorry.
We try to skirt around these things, but that's okay.
I don't.
So is that more or less like the big thing happening in Null right now? It seems relatively quiet elsewhere.
Yeah, there's some local skirmishes and conflicts, which was to be expected. The big things is PL and Brave are fighting each other. Brave has some big nuts, apparently, because they escalated into PL, into Caps. They were like, hey, you think you got Caps? So do we. Bam! And I was like, what?
Somebody
All
just
right.
dropped caps on PL that
On
was
PL.
not the CFC. Like,
No, yeah, which was shocking to me. And I'm, for what it's worth, as much as all the things that I have to say about Hero and Brave, wow, good job, guys. And they won the
They
objectives.
escalated.
Like I said, CFC and BL, they're fighting each other now. CFC has decided it's time to take BL off the map, and the Russians are coming out of the woodwork. Those are like the three big things.
well,
I feel like
it's good to see that stuff is happening. Like that was
Yes.
that was the fear. I think everybody had that kind of thought of, oh my god, like nobody's ever going to fight again, or it's just going to be this localized, bullshit skirmishes kind of thing until we see more from CCP in terms of what they're going to do with Sov. So it's good to see that people are taking some swings in nullsec still.
Yeah.
I was worried that I think there is still an element of everybody sort of holding their breath for the next few cycles and iterations on Null Sov, which I guess we're expecting in whatever release it comes in January is the next big hit on nullsec mechanics. At least that's the impression they'd given us. But at the same time, this is proof that Phoebe did not make everything stagnant, and in fact opened up some new fronts. So I say kudos to them in general.
Well, we're going to switch gears here a little bit and transition to what some people might think is a failing of CCPs, but it's not a recent one. So we have a couple of really excellent articles up on the website, thematani.com, for those who don't know. go there. The highest, the most popular article of the last week was actually from Scion, who is a CSM member, chief of staff of Goonswarm, and also an editor on TMC. He's accumulating a lot of fucking titles these days. And it has to do with the what the fuck is the word? Jesus Christ.
Vandalism?
Vandalism.
There you go.
Of the
Incident.
of the Eve monument in Reykjavik.
Yeah.
Back during FanFest. Somebody thought it would be really funny and very clever to scratch out Zenuria's name from the monument. And while you may not get along with Zenuria, you may not appreciate what he brings to the community, I can certainly understand those feelings. I think everybody understood pretty quickly that it doesn't matter who the person is that you're targeting with that kind of behavior. It's completely unexacceptable. That's taking it.
Yes.
It's one of the things that has always really impressed me about Eve gatherings in general, like the San Diego Eve meetup, and then again at Eve Vegas, the couple of times that I've gone, is that for the most part, people set aside all of the in-game bullshit, all that kind of stuff that circulates around that, and they just focus. We all play Eve, like whether you hate each other in the game or whatever. It doesn't matter. We're all people and we all play Eve. There's not very many of us in the world. So maybe we should, be nice to each other when we're face to face.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's corny to say, but I think everybody feels that to an extent.
There is a camaraderie, or at least there should be.
So a couple of stories have come out. The first story that we ran was a couple weeks ago, and allegedly, one of the individuals that was banned in relation to this act of vandalism on the monument was banned erroneously by CCP, simply because a forum name that they had on goonfleet.com was the same as the
Eve character.
Character's name, and so the Eve character is the one that got banned when it should have been the forum person, or the other way around.
Yeah.
It's all very fucking confusing. Like, that's why you should go read these articles. But I did want to highlight on the show what happened here. So we ran this article about the alleged misbanning of somebody. And pretty instantly, CCP got in contact, and we hooked them up with Scion. Scion did his thing. And they actually opened up a lot, which they have not done in the past, ever really, about these types of things. They didn't give too much in the way of specifics, but they did run down the timeline and how they arrived at the people that they banned, and the fact that initially it was going to be a permanent ban for all 4 people that were involved in the incident. Apparently 1 to 2 of those people were the ones that scratched out the name, but the other ones were there and didn't do anything about it. So, guilty by way of, your presence or
by
whatever.
Association.
And I mean, it's not really guilty by association because they are guilty. Like in law terms, like if you're an accessory to a crime, like you might as well have committed the crime yourself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they were definitely at fault for something. And so initially the ban was lifetime from Eve for all 4 of these people. They reconsidered it though, and they kind of went back and once cooler heads started prevailing, they knocked those down to between 3 and 6 months for 3 out of the 4, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So in a way, like when the first article came out on TMC and we only had kind of one side of the story, it did seem like a pretty significant goof on CCP's part. But after they got in touch and like we kind of got their side of events, it quickly became apparent, and the fact that they actually were willing to talk about these things in such an open manner, that really they kind of handled this the best way that they could. Like there was no real, they weren't too heavy-handed in the end, and they just kind of did it responsibly and in consideration of everybody and all the context that goes along with these things.
Considering the fact that this is, in essence, a real-life crime, vandalism in Iceland, the fact that people got off with 3 to 6 month temp bans, honestly, pretty lenient. I'm pretty sure if you scratched off something on like something Blizzard put up in real life, you would not be getting your WoW characters back. It's surprisingly light touch from CCP. Pretty impressive handling overall.
I still don't think there was too much resolution in terms of the person who thinks they were banned illegitimately. I don't think the second article, which is the one that you can see up on the front page of the site right now, really addresses that too well, if at all. So there's always going to be an element of truth missing from these things. Both parties are going to have their side of the story,
Right.
and the truth is somewhere in between, blah, blah, blah. But I think overall, the fact that they were willing to reach out and talk about these things, like, it just kind of reinforces this newer image of CCP. They're putting a lot of weight behind, like, player events all over the world and making sure that devs go out there. Like, EVE Down Under is either just happened or is happening now. Or
I think it's just finished up.
Yeah.
What day is it in Australia anyways? Like, what the fuck is that?
Aren't they ahead of us?
I believe it's April in Australia.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I want to say it's April there.
That's not how time zones work.
Stop it with your logic.
My brain's smoking.
You're derailing the show.
At any rate, they're sending devs out. They're trying to engage in the player base. They're doing the best that they can. It's always a tough situation to be a game developer and deal with gamers.
Yup. We are mean. We are
Gamers
mean.
are the gameriest gamers. EVE gamers. I'm good at words.
Well said.
No, but what I'm trying to say is EVE players, they embody a lot of the characteristics that you would expect from stereotypical gamers. They are not... It's a combination of Call of Duty shooter player aggression, Dota player mechanic obsession, and, I don't know, spreadsheet game autism level fuckery. It's a difficult community to deal with.
That might have been the best description
It was perfect.
I've ever heard.
I do what I can.
Anyways,
but it's
you should go, like, if you're watching this, make sure you go and look at those articles. They're great reads. Excellent job by Scion, in particular on his, and it's an interesting story if nothing else, and it kind of pulls the veil back on CCP and how they work, and that's always very interesting to learn how game companies are actually run as companies and how they try and navigate this weird entertainment divide.
Yeah. And then on top of that, they're also doing things like the O7 show.
Yeah.
Which adds to their transparency. So CCP is definitely at a point now, I think finally, after all this time, they're starting to understand in some ways what the players want and what the people outside of EVE might want to see in EVE to bring them to play it, or most likely bring them back. Because like you guys said, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that most people who are going to play EVE have tried it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I mean, in the world, there's a finite supply of people who are willing to play this fucking game.
Yeah. You're going to churn through them. Eventually, I think all three of us are like the second or third time was what got us, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of second chances, we'll kind of get away from this, but mentioned earlier that this last Friday, me and Alikchi did a stream. We had some adult beverages, and we actually played EVE Online.
Apparently, it was a lot of fun, and I'm sad that I missed it, and now I'm gonna maybe resub to EVE. What?
Yeah.
I know. There's great trailers coming out. Like there's EVE is fun to play. Apparently,
you can fly around and shoot spaceships. It's crazy. I didn't know this is what you could do. I thought you just waited on Titans. It's a surprise to me.
The funniest
all
thing. All
gates are red forever.
The funniest thing about that night, I think, in general, was the fact that we actually didn't have all that much success in terms of what we were trying to do. We were roaming lowsec and taking just kind of mishmash ships out there, and I don't
dicking
remember,
around.
I don't remember the last 2 ships that I even took out.
General tomfoolery.
You had a tormentor, and you and I soloed at the sun with my Tristan.
Yes,
yes,
I remember that.
Yeah,
I would have had the UI not betrayed me. Oh, it all comes
You were switching
back.
ammo, weren't you? Yes.
I was trying to switch ammo, and it didn't.
CCP's fault. I'm unsubbing. I
Way to
resubbed
go,
an hour
Scaurus.
ago, and I'm unsubbing again.
Back out. Fuck this game. But no, it was a lot of fun, actually. And obviously, I can't say that the trailer brought me back to Eve, because I had resubbed prior to that. But it definitely made me motivated to go ahead and do that, like undock and make some fun stories. This week, I think we're going to probably add a couple people to it if Nystrik bothers to resub and actually talk about the game, or actually play the game that she has to talk about twice a week on shows for a website named after a very famous player of the game.
I don't really talk in the second show. I just make sure
the
that
website's
Matani
named
talks
after
about the right stuff.
Is that possible?
Actually, yes. If
How are
you
you
guide
doing?
if you guide his consciousness, he
Breadcrumbs.
follows the yeah.
Consciousness.
If you lay the breadcrumbs right, he does follow the right trains of thought. It's wonderful.
But so I do want to take this moment to kind of plug our stream schedule real quick before we get off of Eve, because I think that's about it for Eve on this show.
Not a whole lot happened this week,
It's
sadly.
a pretty slow week.
I was hoping for a few more dev blogs, considering we have a week and a half before Rhea launches, and we know nothing about these drones in K-Space. We know nothing, none of the specs for this Tech 3 destroyer. You know, we don't really know a whole lot about anything other than Thera and the Shattered Wormholes. Those are the two dev blogs or the two pieces of information that we have separate dev blogs on that we know stuff about. So I'm hoping for more information on all the other things that they were like, look at all this stuff.
Yeah.
More to come later.
All that stuff in Siegel's post.
Well, I wonder
there
how
are
much of
several
this...
key points.
Because, I mean, that dev blog was enormous, right? Like, we spent the whole last show talking about this dev blog, essentially.
Yep.
But with the stuff that we already know about, so Thera and the Shattered Wormholes are the big thing, kind of, in this patch, or expansion, X-patch?
Thing.
There's a word
The
in there
thing.
somewhere.
The
Yes.
update thing.
This update thing that happens to this game we play. Aside from that, and then, like, what else have they put out specifics about? You just said...
Polarized weapons, formerly known as the glass cannons, or
Glass cannons are
blighted
blighted weapons, and now they're polarized weapons, whatever the fuck they're going to decide
And we
in
know
the game.
We know what the reskins look like.
We know what the reskins look like. That's what I was going to say, is a lot of that dev blog actually amounted to, hey, look, we've got a new, like, rendering engine.
It's shiny.
Ships are going to look different, and, you know, here's some stuff you already know about. So, yeah, I mean, really, while we are waiting on some information, like those drones, or, like, the new Tech 3 destroyer, which I actually really want specifics about that. Like, I want
Me
to
too.
fly that fucking thing and be horrible in it, and just, or maybe not be horrible. Maybe it'll help me.
I want to fly in a curling iron. I want to pilot a curling iron.
I want to see how the curling iron contraption
transforms
and stuff.
I want to see how it maneuvers in space, because
like, I mean, this stuff
it's a weird
is
shape.
What's the front of that fucking thing?
Right?
Do you want to know?
I guess we'll find out.
Just saying, you could be in for a shock.
It's the side. What?
CCP seems to be transitioning away from asymmetrical stuff, which makes me sad. But that's just a sidebar. Go on.
I do, real quick, I do like, in a weird way, I miss the fact that, like, blackbirds aren't going to look the way they look now.
Yeah.
After this update.
I think
Everyone's
that
gonna
if
miss
you made a
out.
real spaceship, some spaceships would turn out to look like pieces of shit, because
Like
that's
big
how the
flying
design
trash
turns
cans.
out. Yeah, exactly. Or a giant rectangle. Rock.
I love the.
Why don't we have a sphere ship? Wouldn't that just be, like, the most
We
efficient?
do, don't we? The nightmare is
No,
spherical,
I
but
mean,
it's
that's a
got
bunch of bulbous
things
fucking
jutting
spiky
at it.
things.
It's
like-
just curvy.
No, I'm talking about just, like, the fucking ball. Like, they should just call it the ball, and just just like a fucking circle ship. Design can only go so far, is what I'm
Why
saying.
didn't you ever get hired by CCP with your great pitch?
I
The
know.
Ball?
I know him with his great ship ideas and me with my great video ideas. We
God.
could be like tag team. It'd be perfect.
I already picked out my CCP name, I remember from the stream. Michael J. Fox.
Ah, yes.
I'll have one.
The point, though, being, there's not a whole lot of ground that hasn't been covered by that dev blog. It's basically boils down to those two things that we don't know about. So while I would expect more dev blogs to come out about those things in the next couple weeks, they do still have a lot of time to cover not that much ground. So I'm sure we'll probably see one, if not both of those this week, and probably get it up on the test server and
Hopefully.
everyone can start playing with it at least get a week in before it hits live. But yeah, so the streaming schedule is what we started with here.
Sorry.
The streaming schedule right now, so Mondays you're watching this show, starts at 7 p.m. Pacific. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays now, 3 days straight of Lazarus Tellraven, the premier FC of EVE Online.
I don't know how he does it.
That's what we're calling him anyways. He usually is, he's actually pretty wonderful to watch. If people somehow have not yet caught one of his streams, he usually has people like Elise Randolph or whoever like kind of stop by. Jeff Rader was on one briefly, I think.
Yeah.
Genuinely fun, yeah.
I mean, he's a great FC. I just don't know how he does it 3 nights in a row. I could do it like once a week before I was like, oh my god, the nerd, please leave.
Yeah. But so Tuesday through Thursday now is Laz, starting at 3 p.m. Pacific. Fridays is going to be this thing. We don't really have a name for it quite yet, but it is a thing that we're going to do every Friday night.
It's going to be great, because I don't have a life.
We're going to have drinks and play EVE Online and be really fucking bad at it.
Oh, yeah.
Really fun. Saturdays...
Progressively more bad.
As the night goes on, it's just awful.
Yes.
Saturdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, so a little bit earlier in the day for Euros to catch it as well, is the Meta Show with the Mittani and Nystrik. And then Sundays we have planned, it didn't quite carry off this last weekend, but hopefully sometime soon, we will have Sub Day Sunday, where if you're a subscriber to the channel, you can dictate what games we play or what ships we fly in EVE, if everybody picks EVE, because you're a bunch of EVE nerds. So we have a pretty full schedule right now. We also have some exciting developments. It looks like we're going to be getting Kid Riot back. We haven't nailed down his schedule, but he'll be streaming PlanetSide 2 for us.
Already done a stream.
He's already
yesterday,
done.
in fact.
He's already done one stream yesterday. And so we're going to try and get him onto a schedule, and PlanetSide 2 will be making a regular appearance here once more. So streaming is picking up. We've got a pretty solid schedule, pretty solid lineup going. Make sure you hit that follow button, twitch.tv/thematani.com, spell it all out. Follow the stream. Subscribe if you're feeling generous, and watch us be really bad at video games. I don't know.
You know what we should do Friday? Or what we could do Friday?
What's that?
Is we get really drunk and lead a fleet of people watching the stream.
That's where I want to go with it.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to escalate up to that.
Yeah, we're starting.
Okay, perfect.
We're gonna start.
As long as that's the goal.
We're gonna build out the core of drunkards that appear every Friday, and then eventually we'll have our wonderful followers, our wonderful viewers, come on EVE with us, and I think I'll make I think that's the rule. Whoever's the most inebriated at the time has to be the FC.
Yes.
Perfect.
Excellent.
We're all gonna get. We should all get breathalyzer tests. I don't think that might not fly, actually. But
yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna have a feeling that I'm gonna be the one that's gonna end up being the most inebriated, because I go from really, really drunk to completely sober in probably the span of an hour and a half.
Really?
So like I'll get to the point of I have a really crazy metabolism.
That's impressive. You go from really drunk to sober in an hour and a half. How do you do that?
Yeah.
I get really, really drunk, and then at the hour and a half mark, I'm like, okay, I should probably pull back, and I'll nurse a beer or something for like an hour, and then I'm like, I'm not drunk enough, and then I'm right back to wasted. I have a very odd metabolism.
That could be a very polarizing experience. Yeah.
I just keep drinking until I can't drink anymore.
I don't like getting myself to blackout drunk, or I'm going to puke drunk, so I find my spot, I curb off, and then I get back up there.
Whatever works for you.
I got a system.
So anyways, that's the plan for streaming. Now we're going to transition into some other games. And this is the point at which a bunch of you stop watching the show.
Bye. We love you.
Bye, Eve.
Okay, I love you. Bye.
Let's talk about Elite, though, because this might keep some of you interested. Elite Dangerous is coming out December 16th. It's hitting full release. Not that you couldn't have fucking bought access already for the last few months if you didn't want to. Alikchi, you have played this game somewhat extensively, probably the most extensive out of the three of us.
For sure.
What do you think? Is it ready to launch?
It depends. which is, I know, the Weasley way out. But it's a great game as it stands. It could have launched a month ago, if you ask me, in the late beta stages. The thing with it is the galaxy has opened up. The main flying in space stuff that they wanted is largely in, but Elite is not immune to the Star Citizen overweening ambition disease. Braben wants to be able to walk around in stations, to land in planets, to do all of these things, to be like 5 games in one. Very similar to Star Citizen in that problem. If it's a problem, I don't know. I think Frontier and Braben are having a better approach in that they are focusing on making the core spaceship experience solid, and then moving forward with, hey, let's add landing on planets. Hey, let's add walking in stations. But I mean, the game as it stands right now, if you just want to fly around in space, shoot things, mine things, trade things, explore, it's amazing. It's fantastic. You could spend years playing it.
So what do you think about this whole kind of small uproar that came up when they removed offline mode?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can...
Does that make sense in this game? Does it make sense to take out offline mode? I mean, if it makes sense for the game, you can't get too mad. But does it make sense?
I don't know. I lean towards it making sense. I think, on the other hand, it's always a shame when a feature is taken away that exists for no reason other than this doesn't fit our vision of the game. I think that, if it's fair to say that if you could play Eve offline, there'd be no one to suicide gank, because the risk-averse people would never play. Yeah, it would be the worst. You'd only have the worst people playing Eve, because you'd only have the people who want to destroy other people. Worst, best, interchangeable in that metaphor. But I do think that a universe like Elite, it needs, and like Eve, it needs to be populated by varying types of people to be really alive. You need those traders and miners. You can't have them all be safely playing on their own computers, and then you have, a galaxy full of roaming PvPers with nothing to shoot, nothing to hunt. So overall, within the game design, it makes sense for the future of Elite. But it's hard for me to endorse saying, hey, you have shitty internet, you can't play. That's the internal conundrum.
Isn't that the world that we kind of live in now?
I think I agree with Alikchi in that it doesn't seem like the game is suited for an offline mode. However, and I guess this is the biggest thing, and this is, I think, what most people are complaining about. People have put money into this, and some of these people have put money into it with the sole intention of playing it as an offline game, and now they're down money for a game that they're not going to play anymore because they didn't want to do it online. And I mean, they're the minority, and they're definitely not, most people are going to end up probably playing it online, but it's still shitty for those few people that did put money into it with the intention of playing offline to have the game developers go, oh, hey, just kidding, we're taking this feature out now.
Frontier has, previously they were, like you say, not going to give refunds or money back, but they apparently have reversed that stance. That small minority, they have. So those players who literally could not play without offline mode are going to get refunds. Although good. it's a they can't have played online at all during the betas. For them to get their money back, so it's kind of
I mean, that kind of makes sense, but at the same time,
you can't even dabble in it for an hour, then go, oh,
exactly.
I can't do this.
What happens if I was playing and I always want to play this game offline, but it does have this online mode?
I'll try
Maybe
it.
Check it once. out. No, that's absolute shit. Just like I thought it'd be. Fucking exit out of that, and now I can't get my money back because at some point I spend 15 minutes online.
Yeah.
And you probably spent like $75 or $80 to get into the beta.
If they reverse their decision to issue out refunds at all, I expect them to keep on trying to accommodate these people. I mean, that's kind of a good move on them. Kind of a shit move that they didn't just offer the refunds off the bat. Hey, we understand we're taking away a major core function of this game. As such, if you want your money back, take your money back.
And someone said in the comments, the problem is that you can farm offline and then take the money into the sandbox, and that would break the whole idea of the game. And I agree with him that It's right. But however, there might have been a different way to approach that. Maybe if you're doing stuff online, it doesn't transfer into the online. Could have been an option as opposed to just taking the offline completely out of the game.
That's a pretty common solution to that. I mean, you kind of see it in more fantasy like theme park type MMOs, where there's not a lot of movement between, or at least there used to not be a lot of movement between PvE and PvP servers because there's two different difficulty quotients there.
Yep.
Then again, at a certain point, you kind of stop caring about these things because everybody has so much money. But that's later on in the life cycle of a game. But I think it would have been fairly easy to implement an offline mode and just here's your offline character. Like this is everything associated with your offline shit.
It's separate.
Now you're gonna go
Can't
online.
Be crossed over.
Yeah, you gotta start over.
You gotta start over. You can't.
That'd be the optimal solution. I think that maybe Frontier will re-implement in the future and create a system like that, but they can't do it within like 2 or 3 weeks of release when you get right down to it.
It sounds a lot like just a victim of a time frame.
Yes.
And you see this in a lot of different games where they have set up a goal for selling or for launching a game, and you have to meet that goal. Like once that's out, once that's to your investors or your shareholders, or even if just the boss just said he wants it out on fucking December 16th for fuck's sake.
Which happens.
Yeah. You have to hit that. You have to hit that mark. And
Elite is going to go out not feature complete. It's going to be a feature complete spaceship game, but it's not going to go out with the walking in station stuff, with the planetary engagement stuff, with some of the other core features that were promised.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
They're going to be nursing it for years and years and years if it's successful.
That's great. Yeah. And that's they're shipping a like you said, like it's feature complete in terms of space. Awesome. That's a great fucking starting point. As long as that game is good, they'll get the money to develop these other things.
Yeah.
Yep.
If those things aren't good, though, I mean, you could very easily find yourself in an EVE Online Incarna situation where it's like, what the fuck are you doing with all the money we gave you? Why are you giving us the shitty walking in stations?
That's how I feel about Star Citizen.
But Star Citizen has been marketed from the fucking get-go.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But there's...
world encompassing.
No,
Star Citizen is going to be your whole fucking life, basically.
And that's fine, and that's exciting.
You're going to have fish that you need to feed every day.
Something they could have, I guess, I mean, obviously Elite, Star Citizen has been in the works for a very long time. And something that they maybe could have learned from Elite is that, release feature by feature, go, okay, guys, we've worked on this one thing. It's ready to go. Let's do this. Release it, and then say, and all those features that we promised, we're working on them. Show us your progress of what you're doing, but here, look. Here's something for you to play with all that shit tons of money you've put into this, because I know people that have literally thrown life savings at this game.
Well,
I agree. It
there's
probably
not a whole lot of help
best.
for you in the world.
Yeah.
I don't disagree, and I agree with you. However, they could have taken a more, staggered release approach.
I think it's very different.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, I think that if Star Citizen was approaching things the way that Elite is, you'd see a lot less kind of skepticism and disgruntlement and all those kinds of things towards Star Citizen. Like, if they had managed to make the dogfighting module work and then gave it some other context in a space sense before just leaping off to a completely different game, like essentially following the Elite model, that game could be really cool. It could be out right now.
I think the dogfighting stuff just came out. Someone was streaming it the other night. So I think they're starting to finally...
Dogfighting's been out for a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think it's...
It just wasn't functional.
It wasn't playable. I think it's playable now, which is good and exciting. And I know that they're slowly releasing things, and they are... I think we're starting to get to a point now where Star Citizen is, here, guys, we actually have stuff for you. Here you go. Instead of just, look, this is your shiny spaceship. You can look at it in a docked situation.
Star Citizen does have, I mean, how much money did they raise in Kickstarter? 50 million? Frontier got like...
at this point. For a while there, it was like every other week they raised another million because people keep buying fucking spaceships in a game that doesn't exist.
It's a very good development strategy, or at least financially.
Oh, it's a
lucrative.
great
But
market. Yeah, no, that's
yeah,
fucking good on them.
but
Like, I don't lay
Elite got
any blame.
1.5 mil. Yeah.
How much they get?
Elite got 1.5 mil, so they can afford their one development team in
Yeah.
one location, while Star Citizen has
That's
a totally
interesting.
different hired dev team making their shooter game, and another dev team working on God knows what else.
They don't even
One
have
at a
dev
time,
teams.
guys.
Yeah.
One at a time.
They don't even have
Yeah.
dev teams. They've actually just subcontracted out entire games essentially
Yes.
to other studios. These people don't even work for Chris Roberts. They're on contract to build a shooter to plug into fucking Star Citizen.
We'll see.
The whole thing is wonky, to say the least. I think
my friend.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, my friend informs me that the numbers are 150 mil versus 2.1 mil for Elite.
And Elite's coming out in 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
And Star Citizen's coming out in
We don't know when.
3 years. Maybe.
Been in the works for like 2.5, 3 years, I think now, and I have actually lost track of how long it's been in the works. That's how long.
I mean, it hasn't been. It's not been forever. Like, it's not fucking
Feels
Duke
like
Nukem
it.
Forever or anything. Like, it's not. It's
Oh, for sure.
it's a reasonable amount of time that they're taking to build something that is this big. I mean, games this big, the game that they're setting out to make is a huge game. Those games typically take like 7 to 8 fucking years to make. Like, this is you're in it for the long haul if you back that game.
Oh,
and
yeah.
if you did back that game, I sincerely hope that you
It's
get your
good.
money's worth out of that. Like, I hope that game comes because there's nothing bad that can come from Star Citizen being good.
Yes,
If Star Citizen
absolutely.
comes out and Star Citizen is fucking amazing, wonderful. Like, that means
Right?
there's just one more
Everyone's
wonderful
gonna
fucking
play
game
it.
to play.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand people who like hope that Star Citizen fails or that I mean, there's Schadenfreude or whatever at play here, but
Those are the nostalgic people who don't want to see, I think, the era maybe of Eve die, because Star Citizen could very easily come in and replace. And I think Elite Dangerous is kind of in that.
I still don't think neither one of those games though is going to offer.
But
Is going to offer what Eve offers.
I think people see the potential for it though, and I think that's why some people are nervous. They don't want to see, maybe don't want to see Eve die, and they're hoping that Elite Dangerous and other games like Star Citizen won't be that nail in the coffin that does finally finish off Eve. I think we brought this up last week. Eve is one of those games where they could stop releasing patches for it and stop updating it and just keep the servers live, and people would still play.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you also have to figure, I mean, we don't know recent numbers for Eve to any kind of exact number, but for the first 10 years of its life, it grew. No other game can say that. It has grown.
Yeah.
So if it has peaked, which I don't think it necessarily has, but if it has peaked, if Rhea came out and that was the fucking peak, and this is it, this is the best that Eve ever does, there's such a long tail on this fucking game that, like...
Yeah, I agree.
And
You'd
neither
be
one of these
making money
games,
off it for another decade.
easily, yeah. I
Yes.
mean, it's kind of like we talked about this with WoW. Like, if WoW fucking was done now, never put out another expansion and just maintained the fucking servers, people are going to be playing this shit for like the next 30 years. My kid's going to have kids that play fucking WoW. Like,
Jesus, that's depressing.
That's terrifying.
It's kind of fucking, yeah.
I mean, and that's great, but I think Eve kind of stands apart where, like I said before, it's player-generated content. So Eve has a little bit more playability and replayability than most other MMOs out there.
Yeah, and the thing with people start talking about Star Citizen versus Elite versus Eve is that Star Citizen and Elite may be similar experiences. Like, those may actually be competitor titles to each other.
Yes.
Neither one of those compete with Eve, though. They're not. They're not nearly the same game.
I think
will be
offer
people
the same shit.
Sorry.
The crossover is spaceships, but Elite doesn't have territorial control. It doesn't have alliances. It doesn't have corporations.
You know what
Star
else has?
Citizen,
You know what else has spaceships?
what's that?
Beyond Earth.
That's true.
That's not killing Eve. Like, that's the point. Is they're not the same game remotely.
I agree.
So, okay, we're getting towards the end here. which means
Getting
we have a
there,
decision. We have a decision to make. Do we give, and Alikchi, I'm looking at you now. Do we give Nystrik the floor for the next 4 minutes to talk about Archeage?
I mean, can she get to the big payoff in 4 minutes?
4
Yes.
minutes.
I can. It's not a whole lot.
Let me have a drink here.
Yeah, let's think about
I
it.
even have a TLDR in the show notes.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm ready for Archeage talk. Let's do this.
So it's going to be kind of quick. So last week I talked about siege tokens and how it's really exciting because you'll siege castles that were once eggs. Hooray! Did you just take some sort of medication?
This show's
Wow.
ending in 4 minutes, whether you fucking like it or not. Get to it.
Right. So it's actually kind of funny because it was supposed to come out Wednesday. The siege tokens, they did launch on Wednesday. They came onto the auction house and people bid on them. People were bidding up to 25,000 gold on these siege tokens. That is, I'm happy if I have like 100 gold. 25,000 gold is a stupid, crazy amount of gold to throw at a siege token. So the tooltip on the siege token says it's usable for 48 hours. Funny story, the tooltip fucking lied. And it's actually only usable for 46 hours. So people were getting down to where the tooltip, when you moused over the tooltip, it said, an hour and 20 minutes remaining. There's actually a screenshot of this. It says 1 hour, 20 minutes remaining, and the scroll, the token was unusable. And everyone was like, well, what the fuck? Why
Why did they
Why
wait
can't
48
you use it?
hours to use?
Oh, and then Trion made a post of, you guys must have misunderstood the tooltip because you actually only get 46 hours, not 48, even though the timer literally starts at 48 hours. That is the TLDR of sieging.
Why did they wait?
What?
Why did they wait? Why did they wait 48 or to the 48-hour mark?
I
Is
think
there like a warning mechanic? Like if you hold on to it, do people know? Or just people were like,
I think it's pretty obvious who won the token off of the auction house. I don't think it's a secret. And I think it's one of those things where you want to try and do it when the enemy is going to have the hardest time fighting you. Stop looking at your phone. That's rude.
I'm getting something ready for the end of the
Oh,
show.
all right. Okay. So I mean, I think it's unfortunate that, and this is just another example of Trion completely screwing the pooch. Just, I don't know what they were thinking with the tooltip description. And then they made a post. They had the balls to make a post that said, "Oh, well, you guys just must have misunderstood the tooltip."
Even
But
though
then
the timer was wrong.
Yeah, even though the timer itself is completely wrong, but on the positive side, they are reimbursing those people who spent that money on it. On the negative side is now the people that own these castles have 3 more weeks to make money to bid on those tokens.
entrench themselves.
And to just entrench themselves in these castles that they've erected. On the flip positive side, and this is the last thing I'll talk about for Archeage, they're releasing a test server. Finally! Do you know how many problems would be solved?
Wait a second. Hold. I'm going to extend your time just a little bit to answer this question. They didn't have a test server?
Not for
Wow.
Northern Europe.
Not for Western Europe? Not for North America?
Not for North America or Europe. Because this game, remember, this is a 2-year-old game
Oh,
in
yeah.
Korean. And
It
I
doesn't
think
matter. Like what?
And I think they have a test server there. And when they did a lot of, remember, Trion is just a distributor. XL Games are the guys that actually do everything. And I just don't think they're in very good communication. I don't.
It's tough.
It's.
I mean,
yeah.
I can
Two
speak.
separate entities, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak from some experience here. It is very tough to work with, especially when there's a language gap in addition to a time zone gap, in addition to just like a cultural gap. All these things, it's so different, and it makes it really difficult to work with third-party developers and vice versa. I'm sure if you ask XL Games or whoever this is, that it's very hard to work with a third-party publisher.
There's especially there's a lot of features that XL Games that the Koreans and Russians just did not exploit, that it brought over to NA and EU, and they were like, ha, exploiting the fuck out of all of these things, and XL Games was like, oh my god, we didn't even think of any of these things, and holy shit, all the exploits, like the servers have gone down countless times because they've had to fix an exploit, and this happened for the first 3 weeks consistently.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that comes down to a culture gap. Go ahead.
Yeah.
recently there was an exploit where literally an Archeage player demonstrated that he could take down a server at any time that he wanted.
Yep.
That's pretty wonderful.
Yeah, just by some commands in game.
There was another exploit. There was another exploit where you could infinitely fill your inventory full of Apex, which is the equivalent of, like, that's how you pay for the game without paying with real money.
Plex.
It's Plex, that's the word, thank you. It's the equivalent of Plex. And then there was these Archeage trees, which allow you to get high-end stuff, which broke the market. And people were exploiting this, and just the market is still fucked. That was a week ago. The market is still completely broken. Things that were 5 and 10 gold are now 30 and 40 gold. Things that were 1,000 gold are now 200 gold.
Nice.
The market is broken because of all these exploits. Yeah.
All right, well, that was your Archeage.
I did it.
5 minutes.
Okay, sorry, I want 1 minute over.
I extended it. It's okay. That's your weekly 5 minutes of Archeage with Nystrik, keeping us up to date with this hot new title.
Yes.
I just play it a lot, so I have a lot to say about it. Sorry, guys. I know it's not all that interesting. It's just funny to me.
Interesting. If you can give us just the 5-minute synopsis of everything that's fucked up, that's great.
It's funny.
When I have to start thinking about using the whiteboard behind me to keep track of, like, an egg turns into not a dragon, like draw a dragon, say not a dragon turns into.
They're releasing dragons in December.
What?
They're releasing dragons in December.
Wait a second. Are you telling me there's no dragons in a fantasy game right now?
Well, there were in alpha, and they're just getting to the point where they're going to release it now. It's a world boss. There's a lot of things that were in alpha that should have been, like, run through, and all the kinks should have been worked out, and they just weren't, and now it's launch, and all those kinks that were there are still there.
I think we're circling back to the problem of executives setting a launch date here.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I don't know. It's all sorts of, I don't even understand.
Those relationships between publishers and developers are so hard to maintain and understand, even when they're in the same fucking country, even when they're in the same goddamn city. Like, it's difficult, and it just all these other factors amplify all of that stuff to the point where you get a game like Archeage.
And it could be so good.
The NA-EU version.
It has so much potential to be a really good game, and it's really sad that Treon and XL together just can't get it.
And it could be that it's not Treon and XL together.
It could be us.
It could just be, it could just be...
We fucked it up.
XL and anyone. Or it could be, maybe Trion's just not that good of a third-party publisher, or maybe XL is just not that good of a third-party developer.
Yeah.
Presumably this game works out okay in Korea or wherever it's in Korea, right? Yeah, so I don't know. These fucking things are complicated and they're hard to understand. I tend not to try and give too much shit to Tryon.
Shit.
Simply because, I mean, it helps that I don't really care about Archeage. So,
that helps a lot.
I don't see where the potential is in this game. Like, I'm not in the least bit interested or invested in playing the game. But that being said, I mean, I do still try and give the benefit of the doubt to these places because it can be difficult and it's very hard to make a game, period. It's hard to put up with players. It's hard to do all these things. So
I think the reason the game gets so much shit is just because it's been out for 2 years in other places. So presumably, I think people think, well, these kinks must have already been thought through. And, and I think about it, I'm like, not necessarily, because there's exploits here that literally Treon and XL Games have come out and said, these are things that were not issues in Korea. Yeah. These were not things that people exploited.
I think the expectations are also, because people, including me, read about Archeage and thought, oh my gosh, this is WoW's gameplay with Eve's, loot and sovereignty and player control mechanics. This is perfect.
Exactly what it is.
Because I enjoyed WoW sort of, but there was no investment for me because there was no full loot, there was no territorial control, there were no stakes. Maybe this will bring me over to the sort of fantasy MMO world that all my friends are playing, but no, it's just they botched it.
Too. They did botch it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think maybe in a few years And seriously, in a few years of patching and updates and stuff like that, EVE got very lucky because it came in at a point where there was no competition for this sort of game, apart from stuff that had been released in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Well, the other point being that EVE did not start out with very many people playing it.
Yes.
It grew over time. So yeah, in a few years, maybe they get, shit gets worked out. And this game is...
Or maybe they collapse and fall into pieces.
That's probably more likely in the current environment. I mean, just from like a business point of view, at some point it's not going to make sense for them to keep trying to run this game.
Apparently there's like 2 million, 2.5, I think, million people playing. So, I mean, they've got people playing it.
Yeah. Then it becomes... It's technically free to play, right? You can pay.
Yes.
It's free to play, but if you actually want to play and experience the game, you fucking pay for it.
Right. So... that number is always going to vary, like how much people monetize, like per person on average, how much per day, and all these fucking statistics. So, 2.5 million players. I mean, they could be making a lot of money. Like we have no idea.
Yeah, I agree.
Or they could be making fucking nothing.
They could be.
Yes.
Who knows?
That's the wonderful aspect of business in the free to play model era is you have no idea.
None.
A game can have like 5,000 players total and actually make 6 figures a month. Or a game can have like fucking 5 times that amount and make less.
Nuts.
Who knows?
This world is dumb.
Who knows?
I think that about does it for this show. So,
TMC Live, this world is dumb.
Yes, this world is dumb.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the free-to-play model, if I'm being...
Well, hold on to those thoughts because we're going to take a short break here on the live stream. We're going to come back for a quick overtime. We will keep it significantly shorter than last time because...
Whoops.
I can sleep?
I nearly fell asleep. Do either of you have any last words?
I'm excited to
reading
play
our
EVE again.
website. Yes, EVE Online, a good game.
I'm going to play it again, guys, and I'm excited about it. What?
What's happening?
Apparently what we needed to enjoy EVE was either alcohol or low-sec or some combination of the two.
I've generally found in my experience that a combination of those two things is the most enjoyable activity you can partake in. So
there you have it.
Hopefully we can recreate it on Friday. Make sure to email your comments about the show to tmclive@thematani.com. I keep forgetting to...
We remembered this week.
I remembered. I keep forgetting to tell people this email address. Please send your comments there. Of course, you also have options to leave comments on the YouTube video that goes up after this show is wrapped up, as well as on the article on the website. So there's lots of different ways you can reach out to us. Make sure you do, though. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. If maybe the show should just be Alikchi for an hour. Not necessarily saying anything, just being Alikchi on the camera. He's
wonderful.
I know of at least one person that wants that show. So please.
That's not true.
It is absolutely true.
I know the person.
Yes.
That's okay.
Is it you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't have an hour to just stare at
so
fucking
much.
Alikchi.
No, not you, Alikchi. Is it Alikchi?
Oh, I thought you were saying
Who
me.
wants it just his face for an hour?
I mean, usually when we're not doing the stream, I'm looking at myself on the webcam.
I don't even do that.
So
and I'm supposed to be the female.
that's it. So TMC Live at thematani.com. Please send your comments there. We will be back maybe not next week because it is Thanksgiving in the United States. It's Thanksgiving weekend, so Monday might be difficult for us to make. We will do everything in our power to make a show happen. What's that?
I'm Canadian.
Yeah, you don't really count.
We have fake Thanksgiving.
You have weird October Thanksgiving. Ew, what the fuck?
It splits up the holiday season. It's
Haven't you heard of Black Friday? It's the fucking night before, or it's the day after
We
Thanksgiving.
have Black Friday. It's the day after Christmas.
Do you get to trample people?
We'll tell you about it. Let's cut and we'll talk about it after.
Anyways, that's it for the show. Please stay tuned if you're still watching live. We'll talk about Black Friday, apparently.